Mahatma Gandhi quoted, "Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony." Our respectable speaker is a philosopher, author, and guide living by and for the principle of happiness and joy. It's great pleasure to introduce Swami Shakarananda. He is an spiritual master, carry the energy of most powerful mystical lineage of India, Bhagwan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri. He was born in 1942 and resides at Mount Eliza Ashram in Melbourne, Australia. He is well known for showering his warm sense of humor and in-depth spiritual knowledge to young minds from 40 decades. As a spiritual master, thousands of enlightened seekers follow his meditation technique nationally and internationally. He is an author of a wide variety of books on philosophy of consciousness and emphasizes spiritual practice. His best-selling books named Happy for No Good Reason is outcome of his excellent writing skills. I am delighted to welcome gracious and praiseworthy Swami Shakarananda.
All right, I'm very happy to be here. I like to begin my talks by quoting my guru, Swami Muktananda, who always began his talks by saying in Hindi, "Sabko bare sanmanik ke saath, prem se hardik swagat." With great respect and love, I welcome you all with all my heart. He always said that his worship was to welcome another person with love, because there was nothing holier or more sacred than a human being, because God lives inside a human being. So in that spirit, I welcome you all. And I'm very honored to be invited to speak at the United Consciousness Conclave 2020. Project Self Incorporation has done a wonderful thing by creating such an advanced program. And my topic is joy through the practice of self-inquiry. And I think Dr. Vikrantji has covered the practice of joy very beautifully. I had a very nice talk with Dr. Vikrant and with Aditi, and I'm very much in sympathy with the goals of this event as they express them. And as I said in the mission statement, one consciousness, one being. Because this is about the evolution of consciousness, in which all barriers to universal love and understanding are overcome, whether it be racism, casteism, religious fanaticism, sexism, or any other kind of intolerance. And I'm reminded of an old story that I heard in my days in India. Once there was a Shiva temple, and the temple was going along, and some Shaivites attended. They came to programs and to the worship. But one day the trustees of the temple got together and they said, well, attendance isn't good enough. What can we do about it? So they said, maybe we should change and make it a Vishnu temple, a Vaishnava temple. So they said, good idea, let's do that. So they took out the Shiva Lingam and they put in a Murti of Sri Krishna, and the Shaivites stopped coming and the Vaishnavas started to come. And only a few Vaishnavas were coming. So after some time, the trustees met again. And they said, well, that didn't really work. What do you think we can do? So one of them said, let's make it a mosque. So they said, good idea, we'll try that. So they took out all the images and they made it a mosque with no image. And all the Hindus stopped coming. And a few Muslims started to come. Some time went by, same story. The trustees met. They said, what are we going to do? Attendance is not very good. They said, maybe we should try a Christian church. I said, great. So they put in a crucifix and the Muslims stopped coming and now a few Christians came. After some time, this went by, they said, well, this hasn't improved it any. What are we going to do? And they thought and thought. and thought, and finally one of them said, I know, I've got a great idea. Let's make it a nightclub. So they said, great idea. Became a nightclub. And then the Shavites came, the Vaishnavas came, the Muslims came, the Christians came, everybody came and enjoyed the nightclub. So, wonderful story. It's extraordinary, it seems to me, that when we seek God, who is perfect love and perfect compassion and perfect inclusivity, we tend to become less rather than more tolerant. So I'm very happy to be part of this event, which may not be a nightclub, but is truly universal anyway. Many years ago, when I first became interested in yoga and meditation, way back in my days in New York, an early teacher of mine introduced me to the writings of Sri Raman Maharshi. And I bought the book Talks with Sri Raman, and I read it avidly. I was fascinated by his method of self-inquiry, Atma Vichara, featuring the question, who am I? When I traveled to India, I finally went to India in search of a guru. I took the book with me, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it. But I can't say that I understood it. But I felt that there was something in that book that was a key to spirituality. And once I was in India, I met a number of great beings. I had a lot of good fortune. I met Sri Ananda Mahima, Nim Karoli Baba, Haridas Baba, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, Sri Goenkaji, and Swami Chinmayananda. And finally, I met my guru, Swami Muktananda, and I lived in his ashram in Ganeshpuri, about 50 miles outside of Mumbai, for the next 3 years. And we had a very rigorous practice there. And several times a week, we used to go into his apartment for a question-answer session on our practice. And early in my stay, I asked him a question. I was very worried about ego and so on, and how it was impeding my spiritual development. And he told me, don't worry about that. He said, don't think I'm a beggar or I'm a king. Think, I am the self. Think, I am the self. Now, Swami Muktananda was a very powerful siddha, a realized being. He had the power to awaken people through Shaktipat, which is the spontaneous awakening of the Kundalini Shakti, an inner potential within a person. And in the moment he said to me, always think I am the self, he wasn't transmitting an idea to me so much as he was transmitting the divine energy. And in that moment, I received Shaktipat. I felt tremendous energy and illumination coursing through my whole body. His transmission was that powerful. And I was in an altered state for several hours after that. I even thought maybe I'd attained the goal with one answer from the master. But no. After a while, the inner energy, the Shakti, made me aware of blocks within myself, of uncooked, contracted areas of my psyche. In short, I came down from that high consciousness. So what was going on? I realized that these were caused by negative tendencies, these blocks, and I carried them within me, and they stood in the way of my experiencing that state. I am the self. And I saw that I needed to investigate these blocks within myself and try to find out what caused them with the goal of undoing them, opening them up. This was the beginning, the real beginning of my self-inquiry. So the first point to be noted about self-inquiry, as opposed to other methods, is that it's the investigation of what is, not the striving to attain what is not, since the self's already perfect within us, within every one of us. And the goal of all the teachings, all the great beings, the yogis, the sages, the saints, the siddhas, is one. It's to attain what we've already attained, and that is the immortal self, sometimes called the fourth state of consciousness, beyond waking, dream, and deep sleep, the Turiya state or the Samadhi state. And this is the state of consciousness that all the great beings that we honor have attained. Though they look like us on the outside, they dwell in perfect peace and divine bliss at all times. And this sublime state is beyond the mind, and it exists within every one of us in its perfection, and still we don't know it. But to attain it, we have to purify our minds, which have been contaminated by negative thoughts and negative feelings. And among the methods of permanently attaining the self and becoming happy for no good reason, two stand out: meditation and self-inquiry. And of course, my topic today is self-inquiry, but it could also be said that self-inquiry is a form of meditation. So let's look at the term self-inquiry. It suggests an inquiry into the self, or an inquiry that leads to the self. Let's say in general, the self is whatever is going on whenever we turn our attention inward. It's the property of consciousness to have interiority, the ability to reflect inwardly on itself. Then we can say that the true self is the place of peace and joy at our center, at our core. And I call this self the clear space of good feeling, a lucid mind, and an open heart. And we've all experienced that from time to time in our life. But the trick is to experiencing it more and more until we live in that place, at least a lot of the time. The other word is inquiry. An inquiry implies questions. A question is a powerful rhetorical device for focusing consciousness. A question brings our whole awareness to bear on one particular issue. Every human enterprise, all sciences, all endeavors use the questions to focus awareness. For example, chemistry asks, what are these things made of? Physics asks, what are the laws of the physical universe? And so on. A businessman asks, how can I make more money? And a spiritual seeker asks, how can I attain higher consciousness? Or more simply, how can I be happy? So when we use the same this powerful instrument, the question, and we turn it inwards towards our inner world, then we have self-inquiry. And when you look at it this way, you can see that self-inquiry is an extension of the scientific method in the area that's been much neglected, that is the inner world. So self-inquiry is a great tool of self-realization. And it's also a great tool for solution of practical problems, issues in relationship, in career, in health and body. These can also be worked on through a process of self-inquiry. While I was in India, I studied the sublime philosophy of Kashmir Shaivism. Kashmir Shaivism is a development of the Vedantic point of view, non-dual point of view that consciousness is the supreme principle in the universe. And one of the Shiva Sutras, which is the founding text of Kashmir Shaivism, fascinated me. It says, Jnana Dishtanam Matrika. Matrika is the source of limited knowledge. And Matrika refers to the matrix, mother, source, the matrix of letters and syllables that underlies all thinking and all knowledge. So in fact, we don't see the world as it is, we see it through a film of words and ideas and thoughts and concepts. The Matrix is all about how our language works, both inside of ourselves in terms of the thoughts we think, and outside of ourselves in terms of our speech and communication with others. And you could say that all life is a conversation, and every conversation is a relationship. And in our inner world, in our inner process, the relationships with the inner self. And we can ask ourselves, does our thinking lead us towards the self or away from the self? Towards the self or away from the self? Does our thinking lead us towards harmony, towards peace and love, which are marks of the nearness of the self, or towards agitation and fear, and so on, which take us far from the self? In the outer world, do the words we speak lead us towards union with others, or towards separation and enmity? Language is the gift of God. Many yogis don't appreciate language, and they always talk about going beyond words. Well, it's true in one sense, but in another sense, language is a supreme gift of God. Only a human being has language. It is a miracle from God. The fact that I can speak and you can understand, that we can communicate profound thoughts to each other and very simple thoughts as well. And even though language is a gift of God, after all these thousands and thousands of years of endless conversations and writings and talks, and all these years we've been on earth, we still don't know how to use this gift properly. And because of that, there's conflict, there's war, there's hatred. In the private sphere, there's the breakdown of families. There's misunderstanding absolutely everywhere in every culture. And that's all because of the misuse of language. And inside of our own brain, there's negative thinking, there's self-hatred. This is a phenomenon I call tearing thoughts. That is thoughts that we have that tear into our own heart, like I am no good, I am a loser, no one loves me, I'm worthless. These kind of thoughts make us unhappy. They take us away from happiness Vikranti was talking about. These tearing thoughts cause depression and anxiety, mental illness, and extreme suffering. And because of them, we seek relief from them through alcohol, and through drugs, and so on. But through meditation and through self-inquiry, we can overcome this inner enemy permanently. We have to find the right thought process that leads us to the self and leads us to God. And this is the goal of spirituality. I believe that the next great step in the evolution of human consciousness will involve human beings becoming aware of their own consciousness and learning how to move it in the right direction towards the divine. So it's very good that we're participating in a consciousness conclave. We must understand that if we work with our minds in the right way, we can create heaven on earth. Great joy. But when we let our minds go down into negativity and hatred, we create hell right here on earth. Are there human beings who've accomplished this goal? Well, of course there are. These are the great beings, the great realizers of all traditions. They know how to use their awareness so that it becomes their friend rather than their enemy. And this is reflected in their writings and in the great scriptures of the world, like the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. Darwin described physical evolution. The evolution of consciousness is even more important. So how do we do this practically? I thought we could do a little bit of what I call Shiva process, self-inquiry, right now, just to get a taste of it. This method combines uh, an acknowledgement both of the personal self and the higher self. So it's both, you could say it's both an Eastern and Western point of view. Let's do it. We'll just do a very short taste of it. To do it, we're going to examine 4 centers within our body. These are important chakras: the navel center, the heart center, the throat center, and the third eye, or the brow center. So close your eye and bring your attention to the navel area. The navel area is the center of will and vitality and action in the world. Feel the feeling in the navel center. Is it pleasant or unpleasant? Is it tense or relaxed? Don't be afraid to be honest and say what it is. Now bring in the idea, I let go. I relax. I surrender to the flow. Feel that right in the navel area. Now bring your attention to the heart area. The heart area is clearly the emotional center. It governs relationships. Feel the feeling in the heart area. Does the heart feel open or blocked? Is the feeling in the heart positive or negative? Now bring in the idea, I give my love. I forgive. I accept. Now bring your attention to the throat center. The throat center is communication central. Feel the feeling in the throat center. Does the throat feel open or blocked? Is it contracted or relaxed? Now bring into the throat the idea, I speak the truth with kindness. I express myself completely and with love. I say kind words. I say loving words. Now bring your attention to the third eye, the Ajna center in the brow. This is the intellectual center and the doorway to higher consciousness. Feel the feeling in the third eye. Look into the third eye with your inner vision. Does it feel contracted or expanded? Is it dark or light? Now bring in the idea, I understand. I have no doubt. I expand my awareness. Okay, we can open our eyes, come back in the room. So what have we just done? Just a little sample. It's been a structured self-inquiry. We've examined our present reality and acknowledged it. This is an important step. Then we opened ourselves to the power of higher consciousness. In doing this, we move towards the discovery of the true self. And this is just a taste of the method. I've written a book called Self-Enquiry. You can look into that or get in touch with the ashram at our website. But finally, the more you find the self and live in the self and remember the self, the more you become a true human being and the more joy you'll have in your life. And this is certainly within our power, the power of every person. So please be alert, be vigilant, inquire into present experience, and then move from that to connect with the true self. This is now and will always be the fulfillment of our human destiny. Please believe there is so much greatness potential within every human being, so much joy to be found. And I'm speaking about everyone, speaking about you. So once again, with great respect and love, I welcome you with all my heart.